Hey everyone, Ryan from Ebike Escape, and in this video, we're reviewing the Vvolt Centauri electric bike. So let's get into it. Before we get started with the walk around, if you are looking to purchase any Vvolt electric bike, we'd really appreciate it if you use our affiliate link down in the description before you make your purchase. It's a free and easy way to help support the channel and makes videos like this one possible. So thank you so much for your support. Down in the description, you'll also find some resources, our popular electric bike accessories list, top e-bike brands page, and finally our electric bike discounts code page, where we track all the deals on the electric bike brands that we follow. And be sure to also check out shop.ebikeescape.com if you're looking for some accessories and want to help support the channel. With that, let's get into the review of the Vvolt Centauri. First, we'll do a walk around, then I'll get into some first-person riding footage, and finally some third-person riding footage where I'll give you my concluding thoughts on this electric bike. Let's first talk about the brand Vvolt. A relatively new brand. They are based in Portland, a bike-friendly city, or so I'm told, never been. The idea behind their bikes is they're easier to ride, maintain, and they do have an affordable bent to the brand as well with some of their models. And it's pretty clear to me that the company is run by bike enthusiasts. And they also have a sister brand called Showers Pass. So if you're looking for some high-quality cycling gear, be sure to check them out. I'll also include a link to Showers Pass down in the description. I've been wearing one of their windproof and waterproof jackets, and I've been a huge fan, and I also wear their waterproof pants when the weather isn't so nice. But perhaps most interestingly, the company is focused on belt drive electric bikes, and I need to pause there because I just need to say I have a huge bias towards belt drive electric bikes, especially ones with mid drives and internally geared hubs, which are all features that this bike has. So keep that in mind. This is a bike that gets me really excited, which is why I was super pumped that they reached out and wanted me to review this bike. Vvolt also offers a longer than most warranty at 3 years, and that covers everything from the belt, motor, battery, etc. And they do have US-based support with a phone number. So if you want to call them and talk to them about their models, they would be happy to talk to you. And that's not something I can say about every brand that we feature on the channel. Their bikes are also easy to assemble. They've thought about the customer experience as it relates to when you're getting the electric bike, especially as a direct-to-consumer brand. Let's briefly talk about their other models. They have the Vvolt Sirius, which is also a mid-drive, belt-drive electric bike. It is a little bit more off-road capable, has front suspension. Check out our full review of that electric bike. Would be a good one to take on some cross-country trails, and if you wanted it to double as a commuter, it can do that as well. Next is the much more affordable Alpha and Alpha S, still a belt drive, but they are single-speed electric bikes. And finally, we have the Centauri and the Centauri S. The S stands for the mid-step. As you can see here, it's a little bit more accessible than the high-step model. And of course, that's my preference to review because it's just a little bit easier to get your leg over the frame. This bike is priced at $29.99 with the 300 watt-hour battery, though if you want a larger battery, you can use code ESCAPE, and that will upgrade you to the 500 watt-hour battery, which is what I have here. That will cost you $300 extra for the larger battery. The bike comes in 2 frame sizes, small, medium for riders 4'9" up to 5'8", and large, extra large, that's the size you see here, for riders 5'7" to 6'4". Though my wife, who is 5'5", was able to ride this bike no problem, and the seat post wasn't even in its lowest position. It comes in 3 different colors, Mars, which is my favorite, this really cool orange color, also available in slate and chalk white. The bike comes in at 51 pounds. With that out of the way, let's jump into all of the components. Starting up here in the front of the bike, we have Rush hydraulic disc brakes. Not a brand that I'm familiar with, though we have been riding this bike a lot and no problems with stopping power. Those brakes are paired with 160mm rotors, both front and rear. Usually we see a 180, maybe something they can upgrade in the future, though it is a lighter weight bike, so maybe not as big of an issue. We have a through axle up front as opposed to a quick release or bolt-on axle. Through axles are a more expensive component for a brand to include. They're also a little bit more precise, rigid. You do, however, need a Allen in order to remove the front wheel. And speaking of tools, this is the multi-tool that you get from Vvolt, so you might want to pack this away in case you ever need to remove the front wheel, either for transportation or if you happen to get a flat. For tires, these are Kenda Coast 650B tires. That's going to be 27.5 by 1.75 inches wide. Certainly a street tread on here because this is what this bike is definitely designed for. I also want to point out that the front hub is a Novatec hub. Normally we don't even see a name brand hubs on electric bikes, though this is a little bit more of an expensive one, so nice to see. One of the couple optional accessories that Vvolt included are these full coverage fenders. I don't know if I've ever seen fenders go this low. That's awesome for commuting. They're made out of metal. These are PDW branded Portland Design Works, as you can see. And these are an additional $140. Highly recommend them if you're going to be using this for commuting. And I also wanted to call out that the company is using these reflective graphics. You can see them on the inside of the fork. Looks cool and also gives you additional visibility, especially at night with their Vvolt logo, and also some in the rear. As far as cable wrapping goes, I think the company could do a little bit more. You can see there's just a small section here. They could really bring these cables into one bundle. Just looks a little bit cleaner. They are integrated into the frame right here. Next, let's talk about lights, because if you're using this as a commuter electric bike, you want some high-powered lights. Now, they do not run off the main battery, though most of those that run off the main battery also aren't very bright, so I always recommend external lights anyway. Though of course it would be nice if they included integrated lights in addition to external lights. So the one on the right here, this is the included light and this is the upgraded 1000 lumen light. I'll go ahead and turn them on so you can compare here in daylight, maybe give you an idea. In my opinion, the included light actually does a pretty decent job. So there's a look at both lights and it's pretty difficult to see any difference. Both lights have multiple settings, including flashing mode. Of course, that's really nice for daylight riding. Now for rear lights, it's a different story. The top light is the included light, and the bottom one, the optional light, is far brighter. The bottom one also has flashing modes, unlike the top one, which is just on or off. Moving on to the cockpit, we have these really nice looking locking grips. They don't add a ton of comfort, so if you want something with, say, a palm rest, you might want to upgrade your grips. We have matching Rush hydraulic brake levers. Just to note that there are no motor cutoffs, not something that you necessarily need on a bike that doesn't have a throttle. On the left is also an included bell. Moving over to the right, this is where this bike really starts to stand out, because this is the Nuvinci shifter, and you can see that there's just a little person and a hill, and this is how you shift. It's a stepless shifting system, and if you do buy any of the bikes with an Enviolo shifter like this, just to note that it does loosen up after a little bit of riding. Moving over to the display, we have a really small minimalistic display, and it's a really simple display as well. So we have miles per hour in the top left-hand corner, pedal assist in the top right, 0 all the way up to 5. We have distance, and then pressing the center button will change what's displayed. Range, and if you change the pedal assist levels, it will give you an estimated range. Now, when you don't see anything over here on the left, this is actually showing how much wattage is going to the motor, which is really helpful. I talk about all the wattages and the various pedal assist levels in the upcoming first-person riding footage. And then hitting the center button will get you to the odometer, 73 miles. We've been riding this bike a ton in the little time that we've had it. And in the bottom, of course, is battery capacity, just simple bars as opposed to a percentage. And on the right side of the display, they have a hidden USB port in case you want to charge your phone. Speaking of phone, this is our phone mount that you can purchase at shop.ebikeescape.com. Accommodates huge phones, and it mounts to pretty much any electric bike. Moving down to the rest of the frame, you'll notice there's no bosses to attach a water bottle cage or perhaps a folding lock, but I did want to show off our bike case ABC mount. It uses a Velcro strap, and this thing is not going anywhere, and even better, you can attach a huge water bottle using this nice click system. So check this out as well at shop.ebikeescape.com. thought I would show it off because this is an accessory that we've been using a bunch on this bike, again, because there's no bottle cage mounts. Let's jump into the battery, which is integrated into the down tube here. Very easy to remove given it's on the top of the frame. Again, this is the 500 watt-hour battery that you can get if you use code ESCAPE at checkout. That will cost you an additional $300, though if you buy the base model bike for $29.99, you just get the 375 watt-hour battery. Now to remove it, turn the key to the left. It does pop out. There is a button at the top to give you an idea of battery capacity. And technically, this is a 36 volt, 13.6 amp hour battery for 489 watt hours. The charger port is located right here in case you want to bring the battery into charge. And to put the battery back, simply put in this end first, push it into place, and then turn the key to the right and remove. Make sure it's firmly in place. Now, if you want to charge the battery while it's on the bike, there is a cover right here. Moving on to the motor, Vvolt is using MPF motors in their mid-drive electric bikes. Now, this isn't a brand that I've seen on other e-bikes, though in my experience, it performs really well. Again, stay tuned for the first-person riding footage, and you can see for yourself, 350 watts nominal, 600 watts peak power. A recent change that Vvolt did with their mid-drive electric bikes is they started to include both displays, which actually allowed this to be a class 3 electric bike. So you used to have to pay a little bit extra, but you will get both displays included. If you wanted it to be a class 1 electric bike, you can use that display for a top speed of 20 miles per hour. And then the Warp Core, which used to be the upgrade, will get you up to 26 miles per hour. Again, I show the full power of this motor in the upcoming riding footage. Let's talk about the pedals. These are simple plastic pedals. Something that I'd like to see Vvolt include are some nicer pedals, especially on a bike that costs $3,000. Kickstand, nice and large, located in the rear. No chance of the pedals coming in contact with it. There's a look at the rear hydraulic disc brake, as well as those really nice fenders. And there are mounting points here for a rear rack. I've been using a Topeak rack. I'll throw a picture of it on the screen because it works really well with this electric bike. And then of course you can use all the Topeak accessories if you want. Like most mid-drive electric bikes, we have a speed sensor right here, and then there's the magnet, so it knows how fast the bike is going. In the rear, this is where the magic happens, at least as it's related to shifting. This is the Enviolo TK continuously variable transmission hub. I know it looks like a motor, it is not. That's just where all the shifting takes place. It has 380% range, and in practice, that just means that you're able to pedal this at higher speeds and shift way down when you're going up hills. And of course, that's paired with my favorite, a belt drive. This is the Gates Carbon Drive, and you should virtually never have to replace this. They're rated for something ridiculous like 20,000 miles. And really the value of having a belt drive is there's no mess. It's basically maintenance free, and you just never have to worry about it. It was raining earlier and I didn't think twice about having to dry the chain off. And with these belt drive electric bikes, there has to be a way to remove it, which means the frame actually comes apart. That's where that happens right here. And then there is a tensioner as well for the belt. Here's a look at the MPF mid-drive motor from the other side. And these cables come out through the bottom of the frame. To show off how the shifting works, at least with the cable, I'm gonna twist the shifter here up front, and you can see that the tension changes, and that's changing gears within the internally geared hub. And moving up to the saddle, we have a very basic saddle on this bike. If you want something a little bit wider, perhaps with more comfort, check out our electric bike accessories list. All right, so that wraps up all the components on this electric bike, but where it really shines is out on the road. So let's get into some first-person riding footage, and I'll see what this bike can do. Let's jump into the first-person riding footage. Now, keep in mind, if you buy a mid-drive Vvolt, you do get the option of having the class 1 display. This is the class 3 display, so we'll see what the top speed is. To start off the first-person riding footage, I'm actually going to put it in the lowest gear so I can see a significant hill here on the Enviolo Nuvinci shifter, because I want to talk about how this bike performs when you're not using the battery, not using the motor. And I would say 8 miles an hour, pretty leisurely cadence. I could actually shift a little bit higher. Again, I can't talk about specific gears because this is stepless shifting, but I did make it a little bit harder on myself. Still going about the same speed, but this is more of a cadence that I prefer. All right, so now we're going to go in the various pedal assist levels. Keep in mind this motor is engaging with a torque sensor, so the more power I give the bike, the more power I get from this motor. And we do have the option to see the wattage, so I'm gonna try to call that out. Let's start from a stop and go into pedal assist level 1. And again, I have it shifted in its lowest gear or easiest to pedal. And I can just barely make out the motor, very quiet, and especially with the belt, makes it even quieter. And I would probably shift and make it a little bit more difficult into a higher gear. So leisurely cadence, going about 10 miles an hour. And one thing I've noticed with the Enviolo, with this shifting, is it does loosen up quite a bit over time. So if you buy this bike, just be aware of that after you ride it a little bit. It will be easier to twist. And 10 miles an hour, and if I put in a little bit more effort, I'm actually gonna have to shift a little bit higher. 13 miles an hour, 14 miles an hour. Let's go ahead, well, let's see, we're using just over 100 watts, 133 watts right now in the first pedal assist level. Let's go ahead and go into pedal assist level 2. 155, 200 watts. And I am shifting it a little bit higher here, going about 16 miles an hour. And what's nice is I can really get as much of a workout as I want. I can make it even harder for myself if I wanted to. But trying to ride this at a more leisurely cadence. If you're buying this bike, you likely are someone who, wants to get a little bit more of a workout. Just have your ride amplified with the help of the motor, ride further. All right, pedal assist level 3. Now we're getting up into the 250, 260 watts, and I'm gonna shift even higher by twisting it down. And I do have the wind coming at me, still 16, 17 miles an hour. I would say the speed is very doable. And only, sipping 300 watts, just shy of that. If I give it a little bit more, getting up into 400, close to 400. So you can really tell, just over 400 there, you can really tell, how the torque sensor is responding to your input, which is cool with the wattage readout. Let's go ahead and go into pedal assist level 4. $18 miles an hour, using about 600 watts. Could shift even higher, I think. The biker is getting close to flat ground, which means the highest gear, if you will, and using about 500 watts, going about 22 miles an hour, and still not putting a significant amount of effort in, which is quite nice. Seems like you can cruise at a decent speed while not having to put in too much effort. Still in pedal assist level 4. Get back up to that 20 or so, 22 miles an hour. Using about 550 watts there. Display's reading 23 as well. All right, let's go ahead and go into pedal assist level 5. Still hovering around 500 watts. Shift maybe a little bit higher here. And yeah, this is really nice. I'm just cruising at 25 miles an hour. Again, class 3 electric bike. And this is a cadence I could ride for a long time using, 566 watts I saw. And I am shifted in the highest gear now. Of course, I can apply more of my own power. 650 watts. And I really have a lot of resistance now, so no issues being able to pedal at your preferred cadence. 24 miles an hour, 25. And I think that's gonna be it. It almost looks like the motor is cutting off at that speed because I saw 300 or so watts. And now as I slow down, it's jumping over to 7. I saw 722 was the highest I saw. All right, so that's how the bike performs on flat ground. Let's see how it does up our large hill climb test. Let's get started with the hill climb test. This is the hill that I test out all the electric bikes that I review on the channel, so you can compare and contrast. The GoPro makes the hill look so much smaller than it is, so throw up a picture as well as the specs of the hill. Now it's worth mentioning that this is a motor that doesn't have as high of a peak output as some of the electric bikes on the channel. It's not giving you 1,000+ watts of power, but what I'm looking for in an electric bike, especially one with a mid-drive, is still the ability to climb a pretty significant hill at a leisurely cadence, even if it's not giving you extreme amounts of power. Now I do have it in its lowest gear, pedal assist level 1, 5 miles an hour, using just 100 watts. And this would be a fair bit of a workout. Let's go ahead and go into pedal assist level 2. Probably gonna stay right there, 165 watts. Still using about 160 watts. Let's go ahead and go into pedal assist level 3. Now this isn't surprising. Usually I have to go in the max level of assist, but I'm actually feeling some relief here. Pedal assist level 3, still in the lowest gear, 330 or so watts. And yeah, I could go up the hill 6 miles an hour, which I think is really great, especially for a motor that's not significantly powerful. So you could go even higher, pedal assist level 4. Again, 500 watts. This is where I could shift into a higher gear. Give it a little half turn or so. 500 watts, 10 miles an hour. So that's actually pretty impressive. Going pedal assist level 5, that's where we're seeing 600 watts. And I could even shift into an even higher gear, flattening the hill, going about 11 miles an hour. And again, I could shift all the way down, and I mean, I'm barely providing effort, and this motor is still capable. And that's not something I can say about all of the electric bikes that have smaller motors. Sometimes, even in the highest pedal assist level, I still need to provide a good deal of effort. So I think that this bike is definitely one you should consider, even if you live in an area with moderate hills. I would have no problem cruising up this hill. And of course, if you want to get more of a workout, pedal assist level 3 is possible. And if you want the full power of the motor, get 600 or so watts, then go into pedal assist level 5. All right, with that, let's get into some third-person riding footage, and I'll give you my concluding thoughts on the Vvolt Centauri. I like to refer e-bikes like the Vvolt Centauri as having the trifecta: mid-drive motor, belt-driven, and an internally geared hub. Individually, a couple of these components aren't necessarily anything special. We've seen our fair share of belt-driven e-bikes, even affordable ones. Mid-drive motors are abundant, albeit cost a premium in most cases. Internally geared hubs are more rare since they are certainly a premium component, but it's when you put all of these three together that I think you get something really special. And that's how I feel about all of the Vvolt mid-drive models, and really their focus on belt-driven e-bikes. I think they're onto something. At $2,999, this e-bike isn't in everyone's budget, though it has gone on sale, like right now, for just $19.99, which I personally think is a steal for this package. Regardless, you won't find a ton of e-bikes on the market with these features, and if you do, they're likely priced higher. There's just nothing like the smooth operation of a belt drive, and with the internally geared hub, there's no clunky derailleur either. It's an e-bike that really all I need to worry about is making sure it's charged, and I find a lot of value in that. The motor itself is quieter than most, though in part due to the fact that it isn't an ultra-powerful mid-drive motor. This is one of those e-bikes where the motor is amplifying your power as opposed to a motor that's perhaps overpowering. Yes, of course, this is due to the fact that it's using torque, speed, and cadence sensors, but I still found at 650 watts peak, it still feels plenty zippy for casual rides, and even more so when you're hammering on the pedals. And it's good for speeds up to 26 miles per hour. Still, I realize the 36-volt system will turn some would-be purchasers away. Speaking of volts, let's talk battery capacity. The 375 watt-hour standard battery is a little more than half the average size battery we see on an e-bike. The estimated range of 15 to 40 miles will suit some, especially if you're providing a decent amount of your own power, but those who plan for longer commutes and adventures should definitely consider the 500 watt-hour battery for the $300 extra using our code down in the description. Frame-wise, I like the option of having the mid-step shown here. It's kind of a no-brainer over the high step in my opinion. The tires are perfect for riding pavement. I'll plug the fenders again since they are perfect for commuters, and the hydraulic disc brakes perform well even with the smaller rotors. This e-bike is almost perfect, and the points of improvement I have won't stop me from riding this e-bike regularly, so we can really test how maintenance-free it is over the long term, but there are some things to touch on here. First, the display. I'm very happy to see Vvolt include the Class 1 and Class 3 displays, but it's one of the most basic and smallest displays I've seen on the market. Next, while the standard battery doesn't offer a ton of capacity, I still would like to see the inclusion of a throttle. It's just a nice feature that might bring in more buyers. Next, integrated lights would offer some increased visibility on the road without having to worry about if the included rechargeable ones are all charged up. And finally, while I'm super excited about the new utility series e-bikes Vvolt is launching with the Slice Lite, Slice DLX, and Pi, I think the company ought to design a more comfortable city model to appeal to those who perhaps want a more upright riding position instead of to what I'll call a more normal bike riding position you see here. If we've helped you decide that one of Vvolt's e-bikes sporting the trifecta are right for you, we'd really appreciate it if you use our links down in the description prior to purchase. If it isn't obvious by now, you can expect us to continue to eagerly cover Vvolt's new e-bikes. I also want to hear what you think down in the comment section. Is this e-bike as exciting to you as it is to me? Either way, if you ever get the chance to ride a mid-drive, belt-drive electric bike with an internally geared hub, I highly recommend it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.